The day is finally here. Today I'll be taking the Caddy that I just rebuilt to its first car show.
This rebuild has had its ups and its downs. Nothing. But regardless of all of that, in the last video we got everything ready for its first MOT, but we didn't have enough time to get it done. We tackled getting the headlight wiring working, worked on installing the seat belts, we fitted a temporary set of seats while mine are getting retrimmed, and finally installed a new exhaust system, and it's still not yet quite complete.
I've had a good check over the car to see if I can find any issues or problems that will make the MOT not pass, but I think we're all good. All of the lights are working, the brakes are fine, and everything underneath is brand new. So fingers crossed we won't have any issues. So I'll see you guys at the MOT station.
It looks like we came to the right place to get an MOT done. You could tell this place was full of enthusiasts. There were some really clean restorations and a few that had some serious performance upgrades. So I knew the Caddy was in good hands. The first thing to do was get the Caddy onto the ramp. Before the MOT, the guys did a quick check over with me to see if there might be any issues, but everything seemed to be fine, so I left them to it. Unfortunately, for legal reasons, I couldn't film the test, so I just had to sit back and wait.
And it passed. I'm so happy that it passed without any issues at all. After all of the work that we put into the Caddy, it's a huge relief to get the MOT sorted. Now that the MOT is out of the way, I've got the wheel alignment booked in for tomorrow. But before then, there's still a few things that we can do to the Caddy. So I'll see you guys back at the garage. We're back in the garage now, but there's still a few things that we need to do to the Caddy before we can take it to its first show. When I was driving back from the MOT centre, I noticed that the temperature on the gauge was sitting just over 90 degrees. So that means that the engine is running slightly too hot. The fans are kicking on fine, which I'm hoping isn't the issue. So I've come up with something that might just solve our issue.
Coolant flows through the engine, absorbing all of the heat, and then heads to the radiator where it cools off before going back to do it all over again. This will keep the engine from getting way too hot. But if you don't bleed the system right, air pockets can get trapped, and that's a problem. Air doesn't cool things down like liquid does, so those pockets can create heat spots. If that happens, part of the engine could overheat and in the worst case scenario, cause some serious damage. So I bought this tool to make the job easier. It's a vacuum bleeding tool and it comes with a bunch of different fittings to work with most cars. The reason this engine is harder to bleed is because we removed the expansion tank and put in a bottle instead. Now, the reservoir isn't higher than the engine, so the air pockets don't escape like they normally would. The first step is setting up the tool. I decided to go with the cone-shaped connector for a good seal. Now before we get started, all of the old coolant has to come out. I'm using a hoover to suck it out of the reservoir. The vacuum only removes the coolant from the bottle, so I had to pull off the bottom hose of the radiator to drain the rest of the coolant. Once that's done, I can push the tool into the coolant bottle. For the new coolant, I'm using a 60-40 mix, which is fine for the UK. It's important to pre-fill the hose that connects to the vacuum filler. That way we don't suck in any air. It will kind of defeat the purpose if we do. Once the hose is filled, I can get it into the bottle and start pulling the air out of the system. As the air gets pulled out, you'll notice that the hoses start to collapse. This is a good sign. It means there's no air left in the system. After letting it sit for a bit, to make sure the pressure holds, I turn the knob and let the coolant flow into the system. The last step is just topping up the bottle.
I've run the engine up to temperature and I've checked on VCDS and it's sitting between 90 to 93 degrees. So I think I can say that issue's been solved. Now that's been sorted, there's something important that's been missing from the Caddy and not a lot of people have noticed. And that is the tailgate.
On the Caddy, the rear tailgate is probably the most iconic feature. It's the only Volkswagen model that came with the embossed Volkswagen lettering. Mine was pretty bowed, but after a lot of work, we got it looking decent. It still needs a wet sand and polish, but I'm happy with where it's at. I also had the hardware and handles chrome plated to match the rest of the car. First step in rebuilding the tailgate is installing the lock-in mechanism. I slide the lock in and tighten down the 3 bolts. It's the same process for both sides. With that done, I can now slide in the handle, hook in the rods and tighten the handle with the 3 bolts at the rear of the tailgate. To protect the paint where the tailgate swivels and where the locks meet the car body, I'm using some clear PPF film. It's not really necessary, but it's one of those small details that will help keep the paint looking good for longer. Once I've cut out the general shape of the film, I fold it over the lock area and cut out the center where the lock will sit. With that done, I can now fit the tailgate back into place. The last step is attaching the straps that stop the tailgate from dropping all the way down. I start by slotting one side onto the body, then the other side onto the tailgate. And the tailgate is all set. In one of the previous episodes, we fitted the chrome waistline trims to the side of the Caddy, but we're missing one for the lower section.
As always, Heritage Parts Centre came to the rescue and sent a set over so I can get everything completed. They stock everything you need for your classic VW, whether it's a show car or a daily driver. Plus, they're offering you guys a special 10% discount. Enter code ZAX GAR10 at the checkout. Now, let's get back to fitting those trims and finishing things off.
The lower waistline trim goes on the same way as the upper ones. First up, we install the plastic clips, which are slightly larger than the ones used for the upper trim. I went along and pushed the clips into the holes. Then my dad followed carefully, pushing the pins in without snapping them. Once all of the clips were in place, I lined up the trim and then clipped it on. And that's the lower waistline trim all installed.
Now all of that is sorted, it's time to go get the wheel alignment done. It's got MOT and the temporary wheel alignment that me and my dad done should just get us there. So this time, let's go get it done properly.
The first task was getting the Caddy onto the lift. We had to use some blocks to avoid scratching the underside, but it went on smoothly. Once it was up, the sensors were clamped onto each wheel. I'll explain what these do in just a minute. With the sensors in place, we lifted the Caddy into the air, and a quick shout out to the pink cowboy. Now, to get the wheels straight, they're using a Hunter laser alignment machine. Here's how it works. The sensors attached to each wheel measure the angles and position in relation to the car. The machine uses lasers to read these measurements, showing how far the alignment is off from the ideal setting. The goal is to get the bottom 2 numbers into the green, but right now we're at 0.11. So the team at Tyre Brigade started by adjusting the driver's side, tweaking the track rod until the measurements were within tolerance. Adjusting the track rod controls how much of the front wheels point inwards or outward. This is called toe angle. Getting this right is key to making sure the car drives straight and handles properly. As you can see, it's already starting to look better. Next, they move on to the passenger side to make similar adjustments. Now looking at the readings, both sides are within the green, which is a huge improvement. While they finish up the final adjustments, I took a moment to check out the underside of the Caddy. I've never seen it on a lift before. Usually I'm on my back with jack stands, so it was nice to finally get a good look, and I'm happy to say it looks really solid underneath. The last challenge was getting it off the lift without any damage. A big thanks to the guys for taking care of the Caddy and getting it all sorted.
Finally, we're getting somewhere and everything is coming together. Since I got the paintwork done, I've never washed it and it's looking quite dusty. So before we take it to the show, I think I should give it a little bit of a scrub down so it looks 10 times better.
As you can see, the car's covered in a layer of dust that's built up over time. I didn't bother wiping it down while I was working on it because I didn't want to risk scratching the paint. Dust might look harmless, but if you drag a cloth over it, you're basically rubbing fine grit onto the surface, which can leave scratches. Now that the work is done, it's finally time to give it a proper wash and clean without damaging the finish. First thing I'm doing is spraying some snow foam over the car. It's not just for looks, it actually provides some lubrication so the paint doesn't get scratched while I wash it. For the wash, I'm using Maguire's Gold shampoo. It's gentle on the paint but still gets the job done. Once the shampoo is all foamed up, I go around and scrub it down. You might wonder why I'm using a microfiber towel. It folds into 4 squares, so I got 4 clean sides to use. Once one side gets dirty, I switch to a fresh one. This helps minimize any scratches. If you made it this far into the video, there's a good chance that you're enjoying it. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, as I have a goal of hitting 10k. Since it's not super dirty, I'm not bothering with the jet wash. I'm using a garden hose attachment to keep it gentle as possible. Once all of the panels are clean, I go around and dry each one with a clean cloth.
I've got the Caddy back in the garage now and it's looking way better with all of the dust off it. One thing that I want to do is make the regular maintenance wash way easier. So to help with that, I'm going to ceramic coat the wheels. One thing about this type of BBS wheel is the barrel, which is the inside of the wheel, isn't easily accessible through the face of the wheel. So when you need to clean them, the only option is to take them off. So that's where ceramic coating comes into play. If we just coat the inside of the barrels, hopefully the brake dust should just wash away.
The ceramic coating I'm using is G-Technic's G5 wheel armour. First I go over the wheels with some polish to remove any marks and stains. Then I can use metal polish on the lips of the wheels to make them shine. Once all of the polishing is done, you need to remove the polish residue left over. For that, I use some rubbing alcohol. And to get into the tight spots around the wheel bolts, I use a brush to agitate and clean them out. Now we're ready to apply the ceramic coating. A ceramic coating works by bonding to the surface and leaving a protective layer onto the paint. It helps repel dirt, water and contaminants while providing some resistance to scratches. Once the coating has been on for 30 to 60 seconds, I buff it off with a clean cloth. I had a bit of coating left after doing the wheels, so I decided to use some on the brakes to help keep them protected as well. The best thing about this coating is that it can handle high temperatures, up to 600 degrees, so you can use it on brake calipers and even on the exhaust tip without any issues. This makes regular maintenance washes so much easier. To make things easier down the road, I also applied a hydrophobic coating to the wheel arches. This should make cleaning simple. When they get dirty, I can just rinse them down and the dirt won't stick as much. The reason I'm using G-Technic's EXO is because it uses siloxane technology, which helps make water spots and road grime easy to clean off. It also holds up well against wash chemicals and prevents micro-marring, plus it gives a high gloss hydrophobic finish that is more durable and resistant to road salt and chemicals. With just a single layer needed and a slower flash off time, it's easier to get a smooth and even finish. The last step is giving the paintwork a quick once over with some final finishing polish to make it shine. Some of the panels could use a wet sand and polish, but even without that, it came out way better than I expected.
It's the morning of the show and everything has been sorted on the Caddy, but now is the time that I'll find out if anything isn't done quite right. It's about a 40-minute drive from here, so wish me luck.
Finally, we made it to the show. The Caddy drove fine, no issues, but I took it slow just in case, since this was the first long test drive. Before I head off to check out other cars, there's one last thing I want to do. I want to dedicate this build to my dad. He's been there every step of the way. Whenever things went wrong, and trust me, a lot did, he was always there to help me push through. When I felt like giving up, he'd remind me of why I started. Whether it's problem solving, lending a hand, or just being there for support, he's been there through the whole project. It's made me realise how important it is to have someone by your side when taking on projects like this. It could be a friend, a family member, or someone who's willing to stick with you when things get tough. Having that kind of support makes all the difference. So if you're thinking of starting a project, don't be afraid. Get someone involved. The challenges become a lot more manageable when you're not facing them alone, and the successes are even sweeter when you have someone to share them with. I honestly couldn't have done it without my dad. This build is his as much as mine. At the show, there were tons of classic VWs, Golfs, Caddies, pretty much everything German. Here are a few cars that I thought you guys would like to see.
In my veins, I've been driving this train. Years in this lane, there's no stopping this flame. Cause I came to the game and I changed it to play how I like, rearranged it to my own domain. Yeah, I got what it takes, made lots of mistakes, taking shots, skipping breaks, feeling lost, feeling great, popping off, singing straight, never stopped, never changed. All the squad here to play and I've got something to say, yeah. I work hard each and every day, I get lost in the words I say, I don't push pause, no I push play.
It was great to talk to people about the car and finally have a chance to show all of the work I've put into it over the last couple of years. Getting feedback and sharing the journey was a real highlight. One of the best parts about being here is spending time with people who share the same passion. At the end of the day, we're all here because we love cars, and it's great to see everyone appreciating each other's work.
So that's it. The Caddy is basically finished, but there's still a few things left to do, and the seat should be here really soon. If I make any big changes to the Caddy, I'll make sure to do an update video. But for now, it's time to start looking for the next project. So comment down below what you'd like to see next. And as a lot of you guys requested, I thought the build wouldn't be over without this.
If you enjoy watching, make sure you like and subscribe so me and Zach can make more videos for you guys.
Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.